It should be a relatively simple thing to create a little hole in your fender so that you can add marker lights to a fender that has no hole for them. And yet I want it so much to be perfect, even though it won't be seen. And as long as it's good enough and isn't completely screwed up, no one will ever notice. But I want it to be perfect. Now the marks on the fender on my car came directly from measurements taken on this fender. And I may not be correct, but it seems to me that this fender was likely the original fender on that car, at least on the body. The parts of the body that are not bolt-on very much so seem to match this particular condition of paint. But what I've learned is that this placement of the marker light is actually supposedly only 61 through 63, while right in the line of the trim is where a 64 to 69 would be. So do I go with the same placement that was originally on this car? Or do I go with the placement that I understand to be the correct placement for the year that this car is supposed to be? And honestly, I just can't continue to wait. I really want these marker lights installed. So I think I'm gonna get rid of all this and put it where I believe it belongs for the year that this car is supposed to be. It's assuming I can get this stupid thing open. I'd have to get a little touch of the ultraviolence involved. There you go. It's like it never happened. There's certainly a number of different ways I could go about doing this, but I've got this extremely cheap little pneumatic roto style tool here. Takes the same size fittings as your official Dremel products. And I've got one of these Dremel quick change adapters here. So we'll put that to use in cutting our holes. And as long as I just kind of take it easy and don't try to get going too fast, it should be just fine. Yeah, nothing's happening quickly, and I know that I'm working with a tool that's going to move slowly. That's fine for me. There's the beginning. My lines aren't great, but I think it'll still be able to turn out all right. Pretty decent little start there. Popped a older, much smaller wheel into the grinder to get the sides started here. I don't even know if I'll be able to get all the way through before I reach the limit. Well, I'm fairly pleased with these results so far. I managed to not really jack up these lines here while getting these corners knocked out. And yeah, just gonna be able to pop that right out of there. Yeah, I found something that might be a little bit better idea. This little dude here. Might be a better way to remove the bulk material before trying to actually get up into the corner there, but it's gonna do fine, just need to be patient with it. So trying to creep up onto the lines can be real challenging, and when you're grinding away, it's gonna throw up these burrs. So I've brought this little rounded file into here to pull those down so that my lines aren't obscured by burrs. Well, clearly I'm no click spring. And fortunately, my holes don't require the precision that his do. But I'm pretty happy with this. Probably could have done a little bit better. Maybe I will on the other side, or who knows, maybe it'll be even worse. I'm pretty sure this will be good enough. I'm just gonna do a test fit. One issue I do have is that the edge of this hole is where the center of the hole for the screw needs to be. So I'm pretty sure I'm probably gonna wind up having to weld that up, sand it down, and drill through. So I decided that a number 35 drill would probably be the right size. And I had this chunk that I'd taken from the fenders, so, you know, I'm testing on the metal that it will actually be going through. And yeah, it's just perfect, you know, the threads bite real good and just cut in a nice new thread, and not too much resistance, but not too sloppy at all. So I think 35 is my number. I'll use a center punch there to make sure it doesn't wander and put a number 35 through it. And I got two, I'm just gonna say it, beautiful holes put into my fenders. Well, more like 4 holes, because I put that hole in and I put that hole in. What's interesting is on this side, the very edge of this hole should be the center of the other screw hole. But on the other fender, it's just a little bit off. And really, it's almost exactly where it needs to be. So it's definitely further forward, but it's too big around, so I'm still gonna have to plug it. Still not being terribly confident in my welding skills, I decided to get back to this roached fender here and do a little bit of practicing before jumping into this. Now, I'm sure that there's better, but I'm pretty happy with the way that's turned out so far. Just need to make it more flat, mark and drill my new hole. And there we are with a lovely new hole. Things are coming along nicely here. Got 2 tapped holes here, and we're pretty much just ready to install this thing. And there's already this wire here, but I don't really like the wire, and I really don't like the terminal. So I do like this wire. I really like these terminals. And if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I love these tools. So I think we're just gonna run new wire. It's not that hard. It does help to think these things through just a little bit. This is the wire that's already here. It just kind of runs up under here and comes around, and where is it? Yeah, here it is. I kind of pulled it out a little bit and just kind of shows up right there. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead and leave the spool in the car, pull it back through the same route that the other one's taking, reach back into this fender well here, push that wire through, run it through my body seal, and make up the end out here. Now, I always kind of have to remind myself how these go. And how they go is kind of like this. So what I tend to do is just kind of crimp down on this thing barely, just so it's holding it in there. And what's wonderful about these things is that they are ratcheting, and the ratcheting allows you to get it to that exactly perfect point where it's just holding it and not yet deforming the clips. So now I can just push my wire in there and clamp down. Good to go. And there we are. Now I could leave it just like this, but I don't know. Even though I know that there's just absolutely no need for it, I just love putting heat shrink on the end of these things and insulating them. Now initially I would push this thing down till it was flush, but I've since just let it hang over, I don't know, like a 0.5 millimeter or something, like almost nothing at all, but just a tiny, tiny little bit. I feel like that turns out really good. And with that in place, we can just connect that right up. Now these have a bump on the back here, and you want to make sure that bump goes in because it's meant to receive this. If you had it this way, you'd really be fighting yourself. So I did find that it helped to loosen this screw to allow the base to come away from the car a little bit to push that back end in. And then I went ahead and tightened it back up. And now we'll put this end in first and just try to be a little bit careful because this right here is actually 3 separate pieces that have been put together with some cyanoacrylate glue. Hopefully it will not break when I push it into position here. Oh God, I already heard it crack. All right, I think I can get the screw in. Tiny little screw here. There we go. Man, there's not a lot of extra threads on those screws. Ooh, I just heard it crack again. That's awesome. Well, you know, this is to kind of just get me rolling. I do intend to get new lenses at some point. You know how that works with me. It may or may not happen. I mean, come on. How beautiful is that? You know, we used to buy those watches that would show you the inner workings. You can see the inner workings on this thing, just like it is. Now, I think somewhere there's a diagram, but this is also pretty easy to do. There we go. There's our left. And there's our right. Left signal is the second one in, and the right signal is the far right. Boy, that's loose. I'm going to redo that terminal. It's awful. I went ahead and made one new lead for each, the left and the right side, to replace this absolute garbage that was in there. So I'll be connecting it to this stock splitter here. Runs off to the front and the rear left turn signals. And here we are installed on my little splitter, I guess we'll call it. And there's our right side. Yeah.
I've got to be honest here. Rolling around town with these marker lights flashing like this, I can't help but feel just a little bit like the pimp of the year. I know these might seem like kind of a small thing, but I've been waiting to do this since I bought the car. To me, they make all the difference. As always, I really appreciate everybody watching the video, continuing to comment, like the videos. Stay tuned, I got a lot more cool stuff coming up.